Hey everyone, Jen here, and today we are going to be making the new 2025 version of our bag basics. So this week we are releasing the new version of the horizontal bag basics with a front zipper. The previous version came out, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. It was one of our first bags, and it is constructed a lot different than the new bag. This has been asked for, this update, for a long time from seasoned users. And so we finally decided to go ahead and recreate the entire bag. How it's put together is totally different. We expanded the sizes, and then we also now have a size 5 zipper version, which previously we did not have. So we're going to be doing this for the horizontal, the square, and the vertical bags. All of the older sets, we put those in the vault a few weeks ago. They were taken off the website. So these are the only version moving forward you'll be able to purchase. The older versions will not be updated. So if you want the newer style pattern and everything that comes with it, you'll have to purchase the new files. So this video, we're going to talk about how we put all these together, tips, tricks. This video is going to serve for both the horizontal bag, the square bag, and the vertical bag. The shape of the bag does not matter when it comes to construction. The steps are all exactly the same. The only thing that matters is literally how you see the bag. So vertical or horizontal, a square, or a longer vertical. So in your file, you'll have a cut chart for the specific bag that you bought. So that's what you want to follow. You'll also have color layer charts. So if you need a visual of how this vertical bag looks, you'll have that. But this is the only video that we will have for all three bags. Okay, so you can see here my samples. This is the size 3 zipper, and this is the size 5 zipper. So I want to talk about materials that you're going to use for this bag set. So you're going to want to use either an interfacing or batting or fusible fleece. So 3 options. If you do not use any interfacing, your bag is going to have little to no stability. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But most people do like to have some shape to their bag. If you're looking for a more slouchy bag, then don't use anything. But my preferred method is either SF 101, which is by Pellon. I use the ThermoWeb version of SF, which is called Soft Woven. I buy it directly from ThermoWeb. I just like it a little better than SF. The other option is Fusible Fleece, which I use the ThermoWeb version of that. That will actually adhere to your fabric. So if you like that look, then that's up to you. I find fusible fleece sometimes can get a little wrinkly, so keep that in mind and read the directions on the fusible fleece if you're going to use that. The other option is to use batting. So we are going to use batting today. And if you use batting, you don't necessarily need to add the SF 101. However, if you're making a larger size bag, you might want to consider doing both interfacing and batting, or using a thicker loft batting. In my samples, in these 2 bags, these are 6x10, I used a heavier loft batting, so I did not use SF. And these are nice, solid bags. The material is taunt, and it looks really good. But if you're making a really large bag, like a 9x14, and you're using a lightweight batting, you might want to double up on both of those. So I have cut down, this is the Fairfield World, which is the makers of Polyfill, their toasty cotton batting. It is very thin, which is what I want because I'm going to be making the 5x7 size. So my lofty batting is not going to be good for this size bag. So I went ahead and went with that. And you could also use Quilter's Dream in the request or select. Those 2 lofts are very, very low. So you're going to start with your cut chart. So once you read over your cut chart, you should have everything cut down to size. The front of the bag should have um, a fold over. So this is going to be the front of my bag. So you're going to take the top and the bottom and you're going to fold it over about a half an inch to an inch and press it. So you have a nice clean edge of your fabric to butt up to the zipper. I also have a nylon zipper. This is a YKK zipper. That's all I use for size 3. For size 5, I buy those zippers from Zipper Valley with the heads that she sells. So just make sure you have a quality nylon or polyester zipper, no molded plastic, no metal teeth, just a good nylon zipper. So you'll want to prep your fabric for the front and have that fold over. Then I have the same pieces for the liner, which is the bottom of the liner and the top. Neither of these pieces need to have a fold over because we are going to do what I call a stitch and flip over. This is like a hybrid version of our bag where you're going to flip the liner, but the front butts up to the zipper. So you can use vinyl on the front because you don't have the fold over, but it will have still a liner on the inside. So keep that in mind. And then you're going to have two pieces, the back and then the liner back, and then all of your batting. So once you have everything trimmed out and pressed, and everything ready to go, you are going to go ahead and hoop up cutaway stabilizer. The stabilizer that I recommend is polymesh. It's all I use in all of my bags. If you use tearaway, it's going to stay in your bag and you're going to hear it and you're going to feel it. Again, if you want to, that's your choice, but polymesh is really the way to go, or another really lightweight cutaway stabilizer. The only stabilizer cutaway that I do not recommend is the one with all the punch holes in it. And that might even be considered tearaway, but it tends to pull apart when you're making bags. So it's not stable enough to do that. So once you have everything prepared, I want you to go ahead and hoop up your polymesh cutaway. I'm using the 5x7 hoop with the 5x7 size 3 zipper file, and you're going to go ahead and take it to your machine and run step 1. All right, so I went ahead and put a piece of fabric under the hoop so you could see the stitching a lot easier on the poly mesh. So I went ahead and ran step 1, which creates the full placement for your bag, and then it creates the placement for your zipper. This question gets asked a lot, and I didn't realize this was a thing until probably the last year or so. But the zipper faces right side up. I've actually never seen a bag by anybody that the zipper would face right side down. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but it would be, I think, unusual construction. So the zippers on all of our bags go face right side up. Now, which way you would like your zipper head to face is entirely up to you. So I prefer, because I'm just a weirdo, I like to have mine on the right side. And there's always a big argument whether or not that's the way that they should be. So it's what I like. So you're going to go ahead and take your zipper and you're going to center it in between the zipper stitch lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect meaning like the center of your teeth. That's just a guide. You want to just make sure it's centered between the top and the bottom lines. And you'll want to tape your zipper into place to make sure that it does not shift when it is tacked into place. Now, sometimes people have issue with their embroidery foot dragging along the zipper and shifting it. So if you are able to adjust your foot height, just keep that in mind that you might need to do that so that your foot, oops, I'm sorry, doesn't pull on your zipper. Okay, so once you have everything taped into place, make sure the head is out of the way of stitching and the end point is out of the way. You are good to go. So you're going to return this to the machine and run step 2, which is going to tack your zipper to the stabilizer. Okay, so the zipper is tacked into place. And once you have that done, you want to go ahead and remove any of the tape that is on the interior of the bag because that will stay. You don't need any of it. And if you have any tape on the outside that might get in the way, you can go ahead and remove that if you need to. So the next step, if you're using the poly mesh, is we're going to cut out our zipper. If you have decided to use tearaway, you don't have to do this until later. But if you're using any sort of cutaway, you're going to need to do this. So I recommend a small pair of scissors to get your cut started, and then switching to kid scissors. I talk about these in a couple videos. These are just kid scissors from Amazon. They will not slice your zipper tape, which happens more often than you think. And then sometimes you don't realize till the end that you've cut your zippers. So I like to start my cut with the sharp scissors and then finish with these. You're going to want to cut in between the zipper tack down lines. So I'm going to mark these so you can see. So the outer lines here and here is what you use to center your zipper. Okay, then you have the center line of the zipper tape, excuse me. And then the two lines that we just sewn, these are your zipper tack down lines. So you're going to want to cut everything in between those zipper tack down lines, all in the center here. You want to make sure that you don't trim your stitching that you tacked your zipper down with, because then your zipper is going to shift, and that's not good. Then you're going to have issues lining up and stuff. So go ahead and trim out your stabilizer. Again, these scissors are fine. They even cut fabric. These are great. I use them for a lot of stuff. So you'll have the center of your zipper cut out. And now when you put your fabric on, there'll be nothing there. It'll be nice and pretty when you're all done. So we're going to stay on the back of the hoop, and the top of the bag is getting done first. So up here will be your first fabrics that we're going to attach. So like I said in the beginning, the liner is a stitch and flip method of attaching. So you want to make sure if you're using directional fabric that you put it in such a way that when you flip it, it's right side up. So you can see this is not right side up. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this around here and fold it over. That looks good. So you want to take your top liner piece and you want to make sure it's just above the top zipper placement line. So as long as you have that covered, you're good to go, and make sure it is outside your bag lines. And then you're going to go ahead and tape this into place. I do 2 pieces on the side and then a small one just to hold the center here, like so. And then you're going to flip your hoop over. So there you can see, here's our liner fabric. Then you're going to take the front of your bag, which is the one that we had the clean edge pressed. So you're going to take your batting and make sure this also has a nice straight edge. You're going to sandwich it between your crease. So you want to butt it up to your ironed line here and fold over the top. So here is your sandwich, and you're going to flip it over. Again, make sure that your fabric is facing the correct way if you're using directional fabric. Let me turn this off. And I don't tape mine into place, but that's because I'm a seasoned bag maker. But you can tape this into place anywhere you want to keep it. You want to butt it up to the zipper. You do not want to cover it in any way, because then your zipper head won't be able to move. So once you're happy with your placement, make sure it's outside of the bag lines. You can return it to the machine, and it's going to run the step 3, I believe we're now, and that is a top stitch along the top of your bag to tack both pieces into place. All right, so you can see our fabric is tacked into place at the zipper. It is not yet tacked around the outside I do that because if you've messed this up and you need to seam rip it out, you would have to seam rip that out and around the outside. So it's a lot easier to split the step into two. So if you need to pick this out, that's all you're picking out. So from here, the next two steps are exactly the same. And the reason why there are two steps exactly the same is because if you would like to put a design on the front of your bag, we want the liner still to be out of the way. Now, a lot of people don't typically put a design on the top, but we still wanted to give that option. So for the video, I'm going to only stitch one of those steps, and that's because I'm going to fold my liner over now because I am not putting anything on the top. So if that is your choice, you can combine these two things together and just skip, I forget what number it is at this point, step, so this was 3, so I'm gonna run 4 and skip 5. So I'm gonna flip the hoop over. And if you decided to run a design, you would just tack down the front and leave your liner out of the way. And then once you're done with your design, you have another step, the exact same step, to go ahead and flip your liner over. We do this usually on the bottom of the bag, but the top, I went ahead and added that just for this, so we cover like all bases. So you're gonna flip your liner up and out of the way. Make sure it's nice and secure, tight here. Tape it into place, and you're gonna flip it over. And again, if you were putting a design here, then you have the two steps. So the next step is going to finish the tack down around the outer portion of the bag, and then you can go ahead and skip the second one of that if you choose. Okay, so you can see it finished tacking around the outside. This is what the underneath should look like. So I ran step 4 and I skipped step 5. So we're going to repeat the process on the bottom of your bag. So you're going to take your liner piece, and we want to make sure, again, this is directional fabric, that it's facing the right way. So you flip it over, and then I like to flip it to make sure it is facing the correct way, and it is. You want to make sure the edge of your fabric covers that bottom placement stitching for the zipper. And you're going to go ahead and tape this into place. Okay, then you're going to flip your hoop over, and we're going to repeat the same process that we did on the top. So here is my fabric, and I have a piece of batting that is far too large, but that's okay. Going to open up that clean edge, and I'm going to butt my batting, make that sandwich here, and fold it over. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to line it up to the bottom of the zipper teeth, just like I did the top. And once I'm happy with where my design is on the fabric, we're going to go ahead and return it to the machine and run step 6, which will do the top stitching along the top. Okay, so we have the bottom of our bag top stitched here. The liner is still up and out of the way. Step 7 will tack the front of your bag to the stabilizer. So again, if you are going to put a design on the front of your bag, you want to run that step and use the other one to tack your liner into place, because you want the liner to cover your design. So I'm not doing that. So again, I'm going to combine the steps. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to the back of the hoop. So if you did do a design, this is the exact same way you would take care of this. Take off all the tape. And then you're going to flip your fabric over. Make sure it's nice and tight and secure. Tape this into place. And you're going to flip back over. I'm going to return it to the hoop, and I'm going to stitch step 7, and I'm going to skip step 8. Okay, so I went ahead and ran step 7. You can see it is fully tacked down, and that is what the back looks like, nice and clean. So the next step is you're going to open your zipper and you're going to take the back of your bag. So the fabric that you want to see on the back of your bag, you're going to take that fabric and place it right side down. So right sides together, and line if directional fabric, make sure you have it facing the correct way. And because I am using batting, I'm going to go ahead and take the batting and I'm going to lay it on top of the back fabric. Now at this point, your machine could possibly be going through multiple layers depending on your combination. So if you can raise your foot height on your machine, you're going to want to do that. You don't want to go too high. Too high can cause thread breakage, nesting, needle breaks. So, I would use whatever advice your machine, type of machine your book tells you to. But on my brother, I go from the whatever default is, which is 0.06. I go up to 0.10 when I'm using thick batting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for this. So step 9 is going to tack your back fabric and batting into place. All right, so our back is tacked into place. You can see there are 2 stitch lines, an inner and an outer. They are offset. That is totally normal. So don't think that your machine is out of alignment. It is not. So it's going to go around twice and then that will be finished. So our last step, you're going to flip to the back side of your hoop and you're going to put on the liner, the back liner of your bag. And I'm going to remove this tape so it doesn't drag. My machine likes to drag on the tape. So we're going to move that. You're going to take your liner. Again, mine's directional fabric. Make sure it's facing the correct way, right side up. You want to make sure that your liner isn't too small because you do need a seam allowance down here for the hole that it's going to, the turn hole that it's going to create. So when you line up your fabric, make sure the excess is more towards the bottom. So make sure all of your lines are covered, your stitching lines, and you're going to tape this into place. And I always tell people in class that if you're going to mess up, it's going to be right here. And it's because you're not going to use enough tape, taping your liner down, and it's going to get caught up on the bed of your machine. So you don't have to go crazy. I've seen people tape the whole dang thing. That's a little excessive, but make sure you use enough tape. And then when you put your hoop back on the machine, make sure that everything is straight and nothing is bunched up under. And then you're going to run your final step, which is step 10. Okay, so we are all finished. The liner goes around twice using the same lines. It also does some reinforcement stitching at the turn hole. This is what the back of your bag should look like. You're going to have an open space here for your turn hole. And like I said, you have reinforcement stitching here and here that should help your fabric not pull out. If your fabric is pulling out still out of this, you might have a lower quality fabric. That does happen with some fabrics that don't have a good enough weave. So keep that in mind. All right, so next you're going to go ahead and remove your bag from the hoop. And we're going to cut around the bag. So you want to trim up. So I marked where the turn hole, no stitching. So you want to go ahead and cut out what I call the flap. And this you're not going to cut off. So you have your turn hole flap here. Then I flip it over and I cut about an 1/8 to a 1/16 seam allowance around the outside of the bag. This doesn't have to be perfect, so don't stress. Just the more you leave, the more bulky your seams are going to be. So keep that in mind. All right. So you want to make sure, again, do not cut off that excess turn hole. All right. So now that we have it cut out, we do not need all this extra bulk at the turn hole. So you want to locate your 2 liner pieces. So, which is our waves here. So liner, you can see here's the hole. So we need this piece and this piece. These are the only 2 pieces that you need. All others, stabilizer, batting, and front fabrics can be trimmed off. and then you can go ahead and trim your turn hole down to a reasonable size. So this is about an inch, inch and a half. Okay, so once you're at this state, we are going to flip the bag right side out through the turn hole. You're going to turn your bag twice. So once through the turn hole and then once through the zipper. So this is the first turn. You're going to take some sort of corner tool or chopstick. This is a turning tool, and you're going to press out the edges of your bag and get all of those corners nice and turned out. Here, you can see here's the zipper. So what I like to do at this point is I like to fold in my turn hole fabric, and I'm going to grab my iron so I can show you how I iron it. Okay, so I have my wool pressing mat and my iron. So I have the turn hole tucked in. I like to go ahead and give the bag a press so that that turn hole wants to naturally stay in now. Just get all the wrinkles out. And then cut off if you have any stray threads hanging around, go ahead and trim those off. Okay, so here is our turn hole right here. So I want to close that up. So I'm going to be using the Heat and Bond hem adhesive, and I pretty much use this for everything. This is the 3/4 inch. I prefer this over the skinny. I think they have a 1/2 inch, or yeah, it might be a 1/2 inch. I prefer this one. Okay, so it's really easy to apply. You just measure out what you need. I use this on all of the mug rugs and the mini quilts and all that stuff. So you see me in videos using this all the time. So you go ahead and take this and sandwich it in to your turn hole, just like that, like that. Make sure it's straight. And you're going to go ahead and set it with your iron. So it's basically an adhesive. You can use this. Honestly, I found this years ago when I was younger, like my 20s, and I used to hem my pants with that all the time. So that's how long I've been using that stuff. Okay. So your turn hole is closed. It's a little sticky because it needs to set, but you can leave this sit if you want to take the heat out, or if you have a clapper, you can go ahead and do that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open the zipper all the way. You're going to turn it the second time through the zipper. You're going to take your turning tool again and press out the corners. This turning tool is made by Ann Crawford's husband. He enjoys making these for us, and I don't know if you can get them online right now. There was only one shop carrying them, and I'm not sure that she has them anymore, but you can find turning tools all over the internet. So once you have your bag turned right side out and all of your corners are pressed out, I'm going to go ahead and give it another quick iron. This is my favorite part. I like having everything nice and crisp and ironed, all the wrinkles out. Okay, so here is our finished bag. So you can see this is the 6x10 and this is the 5x7. So something I do want to note, I had this talk with Colin about the zipper pulling at the sides. And it does, especially if you're not using like an interfacing. And it's because of the way we make them in the hoop. Like the zippers pull, and that's totally normal to happen for our construction. So don't think you've done anything wrong. If the more stability you have, the less it's tend to happen. So you can see on this 5 where I've used a lot of the batting, you don't see as much pull going on. But so that's that. And we also have, I forgot to bring over, I made the 11x16 size. This fits a full-size laptop, so I'm not exactly sure what size. My laptop's pretty big and it fits in it. I went ahead and made these squares and I pre-quilted this before I did this in the hoops. So that's an idea for you. And I know the girls have a lot of examples for you coming up. So hopefully you enjoy, and I'll see you at the next video.